とうございます。Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I have our poser extraordinaire, Nitai.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Arigatou gozaimasu. All that good stuff.
Fucking weeb. All right, well, tonight we have a very, very special episode because we're doing another one of our Spoilercast. Nitai,
Whoop, whoop.
what are we spoiling tonight?
The wonderful Monogatari series we all love and cherish.
Yes, we are indeed going to be doing a spoiler cast for the wonderful and venerated Monogatari series. And obviously, since this is a spoiler cast, you know, they're going to be spoilers. We can and probably... Yeah, I know, right? Perish the thought. So we can and probably will spoil just about anything and everything from the show. So if you haven't seen the show yet... first of all, I think both of us would say go fucking watch the show.
Yeah, we give it a glowing recommendation.
Yeah, this is gonna be as much of a gush fest as it is a spoiler cast. I feel.
For sure. I have a feeling for a lot of our spoiler casts, especially those you and I have made, were super gushing.
Oh yeah, we do these spoiler casts because we love the shows. I mean,
yeah.
I keep telling you to fucking watch Steins Gate Zero so you and I can do a spoiler cast on that once it's over.
Psst, I just started watching it. It's pretty good.
But yeah, but the first couple of things we are going to talk about, if you haven't seen this show yet, are going to be stuff where we're going to try and sell it to you. We're going to talk about how we got into the series and why this show is different. But definitely how we got into the series is definitely not spoiler material. So I do want to talk about that first. So Nitai, you actually just relatively recently got finished catching up to the series.
Yeah. Because when I started recording with you guys, you guys would talk a lot about the series, and I was like, yeah, okay. Like, my first encounter with the series is. It's a very interesting one, but I think a lot of people would relate. Is, you browsing Facebook, you're reading through some posts in this anime club Facebook group you're in or something, and then someone posts like, oh, look at this weird clip from an anime I watched. And it's... what is that clip? Well, it's a guy who, for some reason, is like brushing his younger sister's teeth. And you're like, okay... Sure, and you keep watching it, and it gets more and more intense with a lot of, how would I put it lightly, a lot of sexual tension in that scene. And it just keeps escalating, and I just, like, thought it was like, what the fuck is this? And that's all I knew about Monogatari for the longest time. From time to time, I would, like, talk to someone who actually watches the show, and when they would start talking about it, I would immediately go back to that scene and be like, I'm not sure it's really for me. It seems kind of weird and not really for me. But I would always ask them, well, sell it to me. How, like, what is it about this show that's so good and appealing to you? And a lot of time they'll be like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to sell it to people because it's weird trying, like... It was hard for them to, like, focus on a specific aspect that was really, like, they felt would really sell me on it. But yeah, again, going back to what I started saying, then I started recording with you guys, and you guys would keep talking about it, Kaiki best girl, and this and that, and Hachikuji, and all this weird stuff. And eventually I was like, okay, sure, I guess I'll give it a shot. And... I did, and I watched the first episode of Bake, and I was immediately enamored by the show. It was a great experience. And then the moment I started watching, I was like, okay, I'm going all the way through everything, and it's been a great ride.
I have a very similar route into getting into the Monogatari series. I've known about it for a long time. I think, what was it, Bake started in, was it 2010 or 2011? I can't remember now.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It's been around for a little while now. And I had seen clips, especially that toothbrush scene which you mentioned. I had seen a bunch of memes that came out of the Monogatari series, but I never actually sat down to watch it until about 2.5 years ago. I sat down and I watched the entire thing. It was right. I started watching it as the first season of Owari Monogatari was airing. Um,
Mm.
or no, it was right before the first season of Owari Monogatari started airing, and by the time I had caught up, it was in the middle of the of Owari Monogatari season 1
Which
airing.
means Kizu wasn't out yet, right?
No, it was the year before Kizu came out.
Mm.
But that's what I did, and a lot of it is because of being on this podcast. Wanted me, there was a lot of people back when we first started the podcast who had watched it and kind of pushed me into it because they were talking about it a lot. And I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to buckle down and actually watch this thing that I've only heard about before. And when I did, I was just so blown away by it. And I think because this show is so different, that's why I like it. Like, its directorial style, it's art style, its character designs, it's the dialogue. My God, the dialogue. It's just the entire series is a complete package of just gorgeousness, and it's like, as I was watching, it's like, why the fuck did it take me so long to get into this?
Yeah, yeah. It's as you say, it's this beautiful package of gorgeousness, dialogue, and self-indulgence. That's what I would say.
Yes, yeah,
It's so good.
and self-reflection, really.
Mm.
That's especially when it comes down to a character like the main character, Koyomi.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point about when I watched it was before Kizu came out, and I think this is the point where we're going to start getting into spoilers. So if we haven't sold it to you yet, just go watch it.
Yeah, just one last sentence before the spoiler territory. Actually, this is something, Alex, you used to say to me a lot of the times. It's like some of the best dialogue you'll ever see in anime, and it's true. It's in my opinion, one of the appeal in this. Some of the appeal in the show is the super duper awesome dialogue in it. It's wonderful. But yeah, if you feel like watching something a little bit different, a little bit self-indulgent, a little bit bizarre, not in the JoJo way, but it's something completely different, and go give it a shot. Again, just watch the first episode and keep going. It's incredible.
Yeah, definitely not bizarre like JoJo's, but certainly different.
Yeah.
And there is a new quote unquote season coming out in fall 2018. It's gonna be in theaters, so it's not really a season.
Yeah, more a movie.
Yeah, it's basically a movie. They're not calling it a movie, but it basically is. And that's Zoku Owari Monogatari. So it's a good time to get invested in it because there's a lot out to get invested in now.
Yeah.
I want to turn back to when I first got into this to the Monogatari series. Kizu Monogatari had not yet come out. It was about, I think, 2.5-3 months before the first Kizu movie came out that I actually blasted through the entire Monogatari series. It was up to that point. But that points to a really interesting thing about Monogatari, and that's the fact that the story is not told in a chronological order. Because Kizu is one of the most recent things to come out, but it's the thing that happens first chronologically in the story.
Yeah. And honestly, it's kind of, at least if you look back at the light novels, which the show is adapting, Kizu was actually written after Bakemonogatari, which is the first entry in the show. And that's interesting to see how Nishio Isin kind of very methodically built this whole series, but sort of sorted it in a way that, right, it's out of order chronologically, but there's always a purpose for that.
Yeah. And the original intent was to make Kizu Monogatari right after Bakemonogatari had finished.
Yeah.
But that never happened. It did happen eventually, but it happened years later because for several reasons, which you could make an entire podcast episode about, Kizu got stuck in development hell over at Studio Shaft. I'm kind of glad they made us wait, though, because the wait was definitely worth it.
So good. It's so
Yeah,
good.
and, and you touched on something else. Like, this series is based on a series of light novels written by
Hmm.
Nisio Isin. Um, for someone like you, you're not really big into light novels. I don't think you've really read any other light
No,
novels except the Kizu Monogatari light
yeah,
novel.
so actually, after watching the films not too long ago, I actually ordered the book itself, and this is like the first light novel I've ever read, and still haven't finished it, but yeah, this is like the only light novel I've ever read so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so you don't have too much to compare it to, but for
Hmm.
someone like me who does read quite a bit of light novels, I can tell you that of the light novels I've read, the Monogatari series, at least for the official English translations, are not only some of the best translated light novels official English translations of light novels I've ever read, but it's also just in general, it's the most well written story I think I've ever experienced in a light novel. And I
What
think
else do you have to compare it to?
I mean, I've Overlord,
Mm,
Spice and Wolf,
okay.
Index. I mean, I've probably read, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen different light novel series over the years.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah, I'm a
I
real
I have to
newbie when
say,
it comes to
like,
light novels.
and my favorite light novel series of all time is Spice and Wolf, but that's for a completely different reason. But even compared to that, like, it's just reading this. It all comes down to dialogue for me. It's like
Yeah,
when you watch either when you watch the anime or you read the light novels, it's just the dialogue is so fucking engaging.
yeah, it's
I don't.
so playful.
Oh yeah, and it's just as someone who does a lot of writing, I wish I could write that good.
Yeah,
Um,
Nisio Isin is the most self-indulgent otaku writer I've ever seen. It's incredible. Like, for example, we touched on Kizu in the book. There's a moment where Aragi meets up with Hankawa for the first time, and then a wind comes and blows her skirt away, sort of, and he sees her panties. Now, in the book, he spends 2 whole pages describing her panties and how they look, and then if you were, then like a chapter later, Hanakawa, when she talks to Aragi, she says to him something along the lines of, "You, this look of yours, it's like you look at me as if you were describing my panties for 2 pages," and I'm like, "Who writes like this?
it's very
What is this?"
the light novels. The light novels constantly break the fourth wall.
And the
It's
show
almost
as
as if
well.
all these characters know they're actually just in a story in someone's head.
Yeah, and the show as well. There's a wonderful moment back in Monogatari where Senju Gahara sort of laughs at Koyomi and tells him, "I'm sure my voice actress could do a really good impersonation of you. She's super talented." And it's like, what?
And now and then it cuts to like the resume of the actual
Hmm.
voice actors portraying
Yeah,
Hanakawa. I thought that was brilliant. That was brilliant animation directing right there.
it's so
But
good.
yeah, I would say like the non-chronological nature of the story itself is probably one of its greatest strengths.
It's super engaging. It like demands you to stay focused and like trying to piece all the puzzle to like the rest of the puzzle and see
It
like,
is.
oh, okay,
It's
this
the
fits in here and that.
watching or reading the Monogatari series is like trying to solve a puzzle.
Yeah.
Because the story itself doesn't like force feed you, it doesn't spoon feed you when the story takes place. You have to figure it out as an audience member by watching or reading it. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and
also that's one of the great strengths of Nisio Isen's writing. He actually
mhm.
believes that the people who are going to read his stuff are smart and they're going to figure stuff out and they don't need to be spoon fed everything.
Yeah, it's like it's the whole non-chronological like structure of the show. It's I think it serves 2 purposes. One is engaging the audience, as we just touched on, and then the other aspect of it, I think that just makes it a whole lot more interesting, is as I said in the beginning, how it's like super methodical, how it's all like paced together and structured. Because for example, okay, so you have Bakemonogatari, and that like establishes the whole setting and the world itself. Great. But then you have like this character called Shinobu, which she doesn't really do a whole lot. She doesn't even speak for all of Bakemonogatari.
Yeah, she's kind of just there in the
Yeah, she's
background,
there. She
really.
does something. She is like a major player near the end, but she doesn't even say anything. and you're like, okay, who is this? But then
Who is
you
this
go
slave this middle-aged man has in the corner?
exactly, and then you go to Kizu, and it's like, oh shit, this is a 500-year-old vampire who's like about to wreck some shit. That's awesome. But when you have that context right after seeing her as this like husk, you go to into Nisei Monogatari, where this like awesome bath scene between Shinobu and Araragi, where they sort of like sort things out, and sort of form this like very fascinating bond between them, and the way it, because of the structure of the whole story, it just works. It gives you context when you need it, and it's super interesting. The same is done with Hanekawa later on. It's
Yeah.
very
Well, it's like
fascinating.
I actually look at the dynamic between Koyomi and Shinobu slash Kishshot, as, and this is how I
Kiss
always
shot what?
describe it. Kishshot does what? um, I always, this is how I describe it to people if they ask. Like, their relationship is more than friendship, but less than romance.
Mm.
It's somewhere in between that. I don't know if there's actually a word for that, but that's what it is. It's more than
Mutual respect.
it's more than a friendship. It's less than a romance, and that's, I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, there so many of these characters. It's very difficult to put them in a box, and that just goes to show you how well written they are. Like look at Hanekawa, like you mentioned. She is one of the most difficult characters to classify in the Monogatari series. Is she a friend? Is she a family friend? Is she a love interest? Is she a tragic friend character? What is she?
Because it's interesting how it's set up as like, again, that whole like structure. You go to Bakemonogatari, it's established that they're sort of like they're good friends because something happened to them that kind of made them bond together. But then you go, but if the show was structured as like in a chronological order, it would almost seem as if Hanekawa is meant to be like the main love interest, right? Because I
Yeah.
just watched Kizu again. It really felt like it's setting her up as the main love interest, but then Neko Monogatari Kuro comes in, and you sort of get that, okay, that's why at least Araragi isn't really going there with her.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's fascinating to watch, though, and actually it's kind of a good thing that Kizu was done afterwards, because if Kizu had actually come first, like, broadcast wise, or the book itself, you'd probably be really confused as to why Hanekawa isn't the love interest going forward.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, so yeah, I watched Kizu. I watched the Kizu trilogy right before, before watching ORA season 2. But very recently, I rewatched it with a friend of mine who watched Bakemonogatari, and I wanted to get back into the show, so I said I want to watch the movies. It's like, okay, I'll go with it, and it's fascinating to like think about how you consume certain aspects of the show like when people ask me how to watch the show in what order, I give them a specific list that's how you need to watch it. But Kizu is like it's like an anomaly in that list, because honestly, you could watch it right after Bake, and it would work just as well if you watch it right before Owari season 2. It's strange.
Yeah, which is when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I would
strange.
definitely agree with that. I mean, Kizu is the big anomaly. It really is.
Fuck, I mean, it's like 2D animation with CG backgrounds, and it looks amazing. I have no clue how they pulled it off.
Because it's Studio Shaft, that's why.
Fair enough.
But speaking of storytelling mechanics, that's something else that the Monogatari series does a really, really good job of utilizing various storytelling mechanics to just these unbelievably great degrees. One of the most obvious ones is, well, especially after you watch Owari season 2, is this concept of foreshadowing. I don't remember exactly which episode it was, but I know at some point during Bakemonogatari, Meme, which I still love that
Oshino
name.
Meme!
Oshino, tells Araragi that eventually he's going to have to get over his fear of what he's capable of. I don't remember what episode that is. God, I wish I could remember. But it's in some episode of Bakemonogatari. And that comes back full circle in Owari season 2 after the reveal of what Ogi actually is.
Yeah. Oh,
When
it's such a
Ogi
good
is
twist.
Ogi is literally his built up fear.
Yeah.
Is like a literal
It's
personification of his own fear.
it's so awesome because I'll do you one better. Like one of the first lines that Oshino says is like I think Senjugahara, when Aragi brings her in and she talks to Oshino, she's like asking him to help her, and he says, "I can't help you. I can't save you. You need to save yourself."
Yeah.
And you can apply that phrase to almost every part of the show. It's so brilliant. Like I love this like theme, but you can apply it to every part of the show. So it sort of foreshadows like most of the show. I mean, it makes sense. It's the main
It
theme.
actually it goes to show what the Monogatari series is actually about, at least to me, and it's about self-redemption. It's about taking the worst parts of yourself, realizing how bad they are, and then making yourself better in spite of them.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't
good.
think there's any character arc in the Monogatari series that exemplifies that better than Kaiki's arc. Because
Oh, Kaiki.
I know Kaiki, best girl.
Best theme in the show.
Yeah, certainly. One of the best character themes ever. And that's another thing about the Monogatari series. Phenomenal music. But
For sure.
I want to get to the Kaiki arc there real quick. Because
Go for it.
when you're first introduced to Kaiki, like, he is a scumbag.
He's a
You're not
he's a
supposed to
piece of
like him
shit.
at all. And especially when you find out that he basically fucked over Shinjigahara's family, and it's why they live in basically squalor now. And he's a con man. I mean, that's how he's introduced. He's introduced as like the perfect con man.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he uses things he doesn't believe in to get his job. He doesn't believe in these like what do you call them? Fuck, what do they call them in this show? I forget.
Talismans.
Yeah, well, not just that. The the stuff that live inside the girls. God, what's the word they use? Oddities. He doesn't believe in oddities. Yeah. He doesn't believe in oddities, but yet he uses them to accomplish his cons, which I find like it's only something that con men could believe. Like this dichotomy of not believing in something you actually use.
And he's very upfront of his money. It's like, yeah, I just want money. That's like the most important thing in life, money, and that's it.
Yeah,
he's like not ashamed of it.
But then, and that's in Nise when you're first introduced to him properly. He's kind of sort of alluded to in Bake, but not by name. But when you first meet him in Nise, it's like that you're supposed to just absolutely abhor this character.
I loved him for the second I met him.
I know that, but you're not supposed to feel like sympathetic towards him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But then he has another arc in second season. It's at the very end of second season, which is pretty much all throughout the fandom is called the Kaiki arc. It's actually, what's the actual
Hitagi end?
Hitagi end, yes. And so
what a wonderful arc.
I know. And so when you meet him at the very beginning of that arc, he's still pretty much the same person. He's a con man. He's only out for himself. He loves money. And then Hitagi comes to him with this problem that Naruko's going to kill both her and Araragi the day of graduation, of their high school graduation, if Araragi doesn't confess her love to Naruko. Or confess his love to Naruko, I should say. And so she comes to him and is like, please, will you help me? I have nowhere else to turn. I don't know anyone else I can ask for help. And first of all, that's a great character moment for Hitagi. Because
she's
you actually,
so wonderful.
That is the moment that humanizes Hitagi and actually turns her into a really great character. But that whole airport scene with her and Kaiki is just absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best. That whole string of dialogue between them is literally one of the best scenes of back and forth dialogue you'll ever see in anime, bar none, hands down. But then you watch him as he comes to grips with this. Do I really want to help this person for really no profit other than, helping this person out? And he just walks back and forth with it in his mind. And he finally says, yes, I'll do it. And then as he's doing this, as he's trying to trick Naruko, as it were, um, he almost humanizes himself through it. And then at the
Mm-hmm.
end, he really redeems himself when he refuses to accept payment. And he just walks away.
And then get stabbed in the back.
And then gets stabbed. Well, it doesn't get. He actually gets beat with a baseball bat. But
Yeah, that's true. Funny
um,
thing, I noticed not too long ago when he when he sits down and talks to Hitagi at the beginning of the arc, he literally says, "I don't like getting stabbed."
yes,
Another foreshadowing.
yep, yep. But I mean, but that just goes to show you what the Monogatari series is really about. That's what it's always been about to me. It took me a long time to realize that, because
Yeah.
for a long time I thought this was just a really very cleverly told story, like cleverly told modern fantasy story. That's what I thought it was, and that's all I treated it as. But the more I watched, the more I realized, wow, there's actually like an underlying theme to all of these stories, and they're almost like moral parables, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
For sure.
Another great storytelling mechanic is used, especially in that Kaiki arc at the end of second season. And that's the unreliable narrator mechanic.
He
And
literally
if there's
states at the beginning of the arc, "Yeah, don't really trust whatever I tell you in this story."
this all could be
It's
a lie,
brilliant.
or that could be a lie too.
Hmm.
That's what he literally says. This could all be a lie, or that could be a lie too.
Such a good monologue. If we ever do
Oh,
another
man.
like dubbing special, we should try and dub that monologue.
Oh, the Kaiki monologue at the beginning of Hitagian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
That's so good.
And hell, fucking, and watching Koyomi and Hitagi's relationship develop over the course of the entire series up into Owari season 2, which is what we're up to at the time of this recording.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unbelievable thing to watch play out, because you have at the very beginning, I mean, if you want to talk about chronologically, at the beginning of Kizu, um, Koyomi is this like really standoffish, brooding teenager who doesn't really
Yeah.
want anything to do with anybody. And then when you first meet Hitagi, she's kind of the same way, really,
Mm-hmm.
just in a different way.
She's just
She's
more on
she's
guard
like the
and very
classic.
aggressive.
She's like the classic tsundere archetype, whereas Koyomi is like this sort of just loner type.
Mm-hmm.
But then over the course of the entire series, you get to watch both of these characters not just open up between each other, but open up with the people they surround themselves with, and it's such a beautiful thing to watch because it's so well done. And especially
Yeah.
once you get to Owari season 2, and then like that scene where they're driving in Hitagi and Koyomi are driving in the car together,
Oh,
and Hitagi's like, "Koyomi, call me by my name." He's like, "Senjugahara," and he's like, "No, my first name." And he's all confused, like, "Hitagi," and she's like, she has this look on her face, like, "This is good." That's the point where she's completely opened herself up, and she is no longer the person she was when Koyomi met her.
it's great because you even see it even before that. You see her like how she grows as a person. I mean, if we back in the Tsubasa Tiger arc, that moment where Hitagi is like, when she finds Hanekawa sleeping in that crash school, it's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Get over here!" She brings her over to her apartment. It's like, if the Hitagi that we saw back in Monogatari, that first episode, would never have done that. She would never have thought of doing that, but she keeps growing, keeps changing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, when you first
Almost
meet her,
all
she's
the characters
very
grow up in this show. It's great.
yeah. Well, when you first meet Hitagi, she's very selfish, really,
Mm.
and she doesn't really think of other people's needs. I mean, hell, if you go and look at that, wasn't the second or the third episode where it's just her? That entire episode is just her and Koyomi sitting in a park talking about just absolute bullshit. Has nothing to do with the actual story.
Oh, it's so
It's just-
good though.
It's so good. It's so good. But I mean, almost that entire conversation is about her. She makes that entire conversation almost entirely about her. And it's just, that is, I don't know how you
But-
write this good, but I'd love to know how.
Yeah, and then you get, if we're on the topic of Itagi, and then you get to like episode 12 of Baki Monogatari. I think that's like, that's just a special moment.
One of the single greatest episodes of single episodes of anime ever.
Yeah, when she takes Koyomi to that date, and they go to the forest, and she's like, "Yeah, just look down, just take my hand and follow me." And then they go, and then they lie on the ground, and they look at the stars, and it's such a beautiful gesture that she does. It's just
Oh
it's
yeah,
so beautiful.
yeah. I
Oh,
mean that
my heart
entire
is melting
episode
whenever I
is
think of it.
that entire episode is absolutely phenomenal.
Hmm.
Um, but it's watching that play out is just so fun, and the more you look back, it's like wow, they foreshadowed this like so long ago, and I can't believe I didn't catch it earlier.
Hmm.
God damn.
Any if we're on the topic of like cool moments we love in the show, why not you throw one into the ring?
Oh, oh God, that I haven't talked about already. Um, I got another one that involves Kaiki, and I only throw this in because it makes me laugh because I've watched this scene over and over again, but it makes me laugh every single time I watch it.
Okay.
And it's that scene where is it? Yeah, it is in that. It's in the same arc, the Kaiki arc in second season, where Kaiki meets Ononoki, and they
I know
have
what you're talking about.
that conversation outside the coffee shop. I don't know why that scene makes me laugh every single time, but it does. I know a lot of even Monogatari fans in general will poo-poo Ononoki, but I love Ononoki.
Yeah, Anarchy is great.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah. Peace,
Yay.
peace.
Peace, peace. I said with a posed look. um. But yeah. I don't know that scene every single time makes me laugh. That just basically every scene in the Kaiki arc is great.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of something early on. Oh, I think I got one from Kizu that I really love is the fight between Koyomi and Kiss Shot.
Yeah.
Which I will,
One
I
of
will, I will, I will, I
mm.
will sit here and contend that fight is better than any fight that has been in any shonen series ever.
That's I don't know if I agree with that. I know it's probably one of my favorite fights in recent memory. It's so weird. It's it's like what am I even watching? Because
I
everything in that fight is so well done. Like the sound design, the random like applause and shouting you hear in the background, like it's a football game or something. It's so good.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Just I look at that fight and I look at fights I've seen in shonen like Naruto or any Dragon Ball, anything. I don't care. In my mind, that is the best fight anime has ever had.
Mm.
It's the best looking. It's got the best music. It's got the best fucking animation.
It's
Oh
so
God.
good. I have another moment that it's I don't know if it's probably up there as one of my favorite moments in the show. It's I think you and I agree that Tsubasa Tiger is a wonderful piece of anime in general. It's
I think something else that you and I both agree with is that even though the canon ship is fantastic, which is Koyomi and Hitagi, which we both love, I think you
mm,
and I also both agree that in spite of that, Hanakawa is the best girl in the series.
yeah. Koyomi and Itagi are like the perfect chip, but Hanekawa is best girl indeed.
Yeah.
But that sort of so in Tsubasa Tiger that because okay so the wonderful thing about Tsubasa Tiger is it's like this big conclusion to her entire arc that started back in the near the end of Bakemonogatari. So so you see her in different stages of the story, and then you reach this climax where she has this like spiritual journey where she's finally sort of comes to terms with her flaws. It's such a beautiful moment. I love it. It really touched me. I love it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
I mean, and that speaks to like some of the themes, and especially in the early parts of
Mm,
the Monogatari series, of things like trauma and PTSD. I mean, and the fact that Hanakawa thinks of herself as trying to be perfect all the time, and she has this enormous amount of stress from it, and she just gets to a point where she can't take it no more.
yeah, it's like she's trying to be so perfect all the time. She literally like disconnects from her bad emotions, and she like thinks everything is normal around her, and it's
Yeah,
like yeah, I sleep in my living room, and she thinks that's normal. It's like there's like such a major flaw in her character she needs to confront in that arc. It's so well done.
Yeah. The funny thing is that there's a piece of, I think it's official artwork from Vofan out there, um, that he did from that arc, the Tsubasa Tiger arc, where there's a couple of scenes that actually take place in Hanakawa's house.
Hmm.
And there's a scene of her quote unquote bed, and it's in a hallway, and it looks suspiciously like a litter box.
Huh. If you have that art, I would like to check
I have
it out.
I have
At
to go
some
find
point.
it, but I remember seeing
Yeah,
that a long time ago, and I thought that was really weird, but a very good art choice.
not
Uh,
gonna lie. If when I'm in Germany at Comic Con Berlin, if I see something related to Anikawa, I probably just buy it right away because
Bayataki.
she's so precious. I love her.
um, but yeah, I mean,
Especially with like the white stripes. Oh, she looks amazing. I love it. Okay, enough.
that's something else you and I agree on. The short-haired Hanakawa looks the
Yeah.
best,
How do you
and
call
you're
it?
not
The
even that into
Mitsubishi
girls with
treatment?
short hair.
Yeah, but she looks fantastic. What can I say? I love
Um,
my wife in all of her forms.
I know. Cat ears and all.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I mean, and you pointed to it, like she thinks that all this stuff, because she's bottled up all these negative emotions and pushed them all to the side. She thinks that all these terrible things that actually do happen to her are normal, to the point at which she's getting like hit in the face by her adopted father, and she thinks that's normal. That's how most kids live.
yeah.
It's just, it's so well done. It really is.
Yeah.
And just watching her get through it herself is just
And then,
amazing.
oh, and like the big payoff for that is in Owari Monogatari, are the like two moments that I feel like were the big payoff for that. It's when actually even again in Itagi End where she talks to Kaiki, that's also a great moment. But anyway, in Owari, there's like this one scene where she confronts, where she has this like battle of wits with Ogi, which is awesome, and then like her final like winning moment in Owari season 2 where she brings Oshino. It's like I win. It's so good.
Oh hell, I
Man,
mean,
I love her.
just it's funny because Awari brings so much of that to a head. I mean, even with Hitagi, you get to see her like stand up for her own like herself for once, and
Yeah,
she punches out Sonashi.
that's a great moment.
That cat fight, it's like, oh, and then of course Hanakawa's involved. She's hanging by.
Yeah.
She's hanging by Hitagi's waist, like being dragged in. It's like, no, don't do this. Don't do this.
Uh,
Oh,
I wish. I remember when I watched that specific episode. I think maybe I sent you a message on Discord telling you I wish there were more scenes of that, of like other characters interacting when Koyomi is like not necessarily there, which does happen. But I just want more of them because it's so good. I
which
love
kind of
it.
brings up a good point because there's an entire arc of the Monogatari series, at least so far, that does that, and a majority of the fans don't like it,
Mm.
and that's Hana
There,
Monogatari.
also Tsubasa Tiger, sort of.
That's sort of, but he is still there.
I guess, yeah.
Um, but
Yeah, Hana is
Hana
interesting.
Monogatari is really weird because it's chronologically, at least of the anime so far, it's the one that takes place the latest.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also it's an attempt to do the Monogatari series without Koyomi. I mean, yes, he does appear in it at the very end, but not for very long, and he's not really a huge part of the story. But essentially, the story tries to be a story tries to be told in the Monogatari universe without Koyomi in it, and I think that's kind of the reason.
I love how it's set up though. It's like because the way it's like set up. So it's Kanemaru talking, and she's like referring to Itagi and Koyomi as if they're like dead or something. It's like, oh no, they just went to college. But that's the cool part. For her, there might as well be quote unquote dead because they're like two of the most important people in her life who are gone. I think like I really liked Hana because like the main like thing about it that I really connected to actually is that feeling of stasis in your life where you feel like you're stuck and no matter what you can't like manage to move forward.
Yeah, you're stuck
It's
in a rut and you don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you either manage to like connect to that or not. But I think Hana is still like a solid entry in the franchise as a whole. But I get why people don't like it as much.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. For me personally, I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad, but it isn't my. It's certainly not my favorite part of the series.
Hmm.
I'd probably say it's toward the bottom, so far. But it was an interesting take on it, and I do think it brings up something that a lot of people, I think, young people, like when they're finishing high school, it brings up something that a lot of them go through. It's like, well, what do I do now? I'm an adult, but I have to make this decision on my own. No one can make it for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason that Hana is the way it is, because Kamadu is going through that motion of like, I'm finishing up high school. What the fuck do I do now?
Yeah. It's it's interesting. Like. I really want to go back and watch Hana. It's good. But
I really think Hana
it's
would have been
interesting.
better if Kamadu and that other girl had fucked. I'm throwing that out there because I'm right.
Okay. Moving on.
Also, I will say one good thing about Hana that I loved was it brought Kaiki back, and that
Yeah.
it told us he wasn't dead.
Goatee Kaiki.
I mean,
So good.
I mean, the end of the
You
second
love
season
his
gives you the
speech in that.
impression that he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, like I was super sad because I'm watching Itagi and it's so wonderful. I love it. And then at the end, it's like, okay, Kaiki is now is dead. I'm like, no, no, don't do it. But he's alive, so I guess it's okay.
And then he comes
That's
back and he's better than ever. He has a fucking 4.5 minute long monologue about meat, which
oh, it's wonderful.
I am convinced is about homosexuality.
Yeah, because you're also convinced that Kaiki might be Kanburu's dad.
I am, and I want
I
to
like
preface
that
this by
theory. I'm
saying
not gonna lie.
I haven't read any of the Monogatari series that has not been officially translated into English. So that's my well of knowledge of the Monogatari series is based on the anime I've seen so far, plus the light novels that I've read that are translated officially in English. Um, so I don't know if going forward in the light novels we're gonna get information that completely like negates this, but I am so convinced based on the information I have that
Hmm.
Kaiki is Kambadu's father.
That's a cool theory. I don't. I think I'm. I don't know why I think of it, but
We know that when Kaiki was in college, he was in love with Kambadu's mom.
yeah. Also, like one of his conditions for helping Itagi and Araragi was like being in Kanburu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Could be.
he
Could be.
intentionally keeps a close eye on her.
Hmm.
I mean,
Like
and we
the
know that
first,
Kambadu's
like the first time we meet him is like right in front of Kanburu's house.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just it's really it makes sense.
Hmm.
It makes sense. I mean, we know that Kambaru has a mother and a father. We know who her mother is. And well, obviously we don't know who her father is, but we do know that the mother and father that claimed her died in I think it was a car accident.
Something like that.
It was some kind of accident where they both died at the same
Hmm.
time. So I assume it was a car accident. I may not be remembering that right, but we know that they're dead.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I'm convinced that Kaiki is her actual father, and she married another guy to cover that up. That's just my opinion.
I love how slow this podcast is turning to the Kaiki show.
I know, right? Kaiki's great. Um,
It's such a good character.
one last thing about Kaiki, I swear. Um, I want to ask you this because I love this series. It looks like it's gonna. I mean, Shaft has said a long time ago that they're going to do a complete adaptation of this series, and they
Hmm.
seem to be making good on that promise, which I'm very very happy about. Um, but I wonder if because we have Zoku coming out later this year,
Yeah.
and I'm just wondering if that's going to be the end of it, or they're going to go because we're done with final season after that. That the
Yeah,
only
but
thing
there's still
left is
off season
monster
and monster
season.
season.
Yeah. Um.
So I'll tell you what. If Zoku turns out great and that's it, I'll be okay with it. But if they will be like, okay, we want to go ahead and adapt more of the books that are out already, I won't mind because like for the longest time I wasn't too sure about it because it felt like the new books are more of side stories. But recently I've like been digging around Reddit and reading some comments from people who actually read the new books, and they say they're just as good. So yeah, I don't mind more stuff like, and again, if they're not as good, that's fine because we still have, so far like the entirety of the show so far is great all around in my opinion, except for like maybe just tiny parts. But as a whole, like I really wouldn't mind more Monogatari. So either way, I would be happy.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is because, like you say, there are some books in Monster Season that sound like they'd be pretty good. They certainly sound like they make good additions to the anime, especially that story arc that revolves around an adult Koyomi and Hitagi being married and
Oh,
basically like solving crimes together.
oh,
Um,
just
which
melt my heart with sugar, man. It's
but do you know what I want more than anything else? And
what?
this will be like Hana Monogatari Part 2 when you try to make a story in the Monogatari series without Koyomi. But what I want more than anything else is I want a story about the Ghostbuster characters, which is Meme,
Mm,
Kaiki, Kaganui, and
Guy,
Gaien. Yes, about
that would
how they
be
met in
dope.
college and like what happened between them because none of them
And that
actually
other
really
guy,
meet in the
yeah,
Monogatari series proper.
yeah,
So I
that would
think
be dope.
there has to be a really good story there. There has to be.
And somehow Guillotine Cutter needs to like probably get in there as well, right?
Someone what?
Guillotine Cutter needs
Oh
to
yes,
be
yes, yes.
somewhat
Guillotine
connected to
cutter,
that.
yes. And and episode. God, I feel like episode is the most underused character in the show.
I think he's because he shows up in Kizu, he shows up in Neko White, and then he shows up in Shinobu Male. I think he shows up like just enough. Oh, you just reminded. So there's a point in Shinobu Male back in Owari season 1 where I don't remember at which point. So Gain tells tells Koyomi to go to the bookstore and buy uh, Yuri not Yuri Yaoi
BL. She
comic
wants him to buy
and
BL.
yeah, BL and MILF porn or something like that. And then he comes back and he talks to her in an episode, and then he gets distracted by something and talks to someone else. And then when he turns back to Guy in an episode, Guy reads the Yaoi, and episode reads the no, the other way around. Episode reads the BL book, and Guy reads the MILF porn. Just for some reason that's in there. It's like okay, sure. Man, this show
I
is
also have a
dumb.
theory that Gaien is a lesbian.
Could be.
She strikes me. It's the gaydar going off, man. Um
The gates are going
the
off.
gaydar is going
Okay.
off.
Oh
I want
god.
to ask you something, and I think this would actually be a really good way to wrap this up. Um so a lot of people from the outside look at the Monogatari series and really they think it's just a fan service harem show.
I thought as well for the longest
Well,
time.
I think a lot of people, even those who try and get into it, go into that with that kind of a mindset, and I think that's why a lot of people are blown away by it. Um, First of all, it's not a harem. Shut the fuck up. Everyone out there that says it's a harem can really go fuck themselves. There is only one established relationship from the beginning. Um, but
But almost every girl wants to bone Koyomi, so you know.
what a great position to be in. But I do want to talk about the actual fan service because it's undeniable that there is an enormous amount of fan service in this
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and
It's atrocious.
it's not. It's a lot of it's really good, and I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to because there's so much more to it than just fan service. I want to ask: is it a form of intelligent fan service, like fan service for a purpose?
Yes, I think it's the best kind of fan service because it actually serves a purpose and it's not like they're just like it's eye candy, yeah, but it also like is there for a reason. Like if I I haven't watched Kill la Kill, but someone told me once that if you would take away the fan service of Kill la Kill, the show wouldn't be the same at all, and probably for the worse. Is that correct?
The show would not work without its fan service.
Exactly. I think Monogatari sort of is the same to a lesser degree. And for example, remember that scene back in Bake where Koyomi goes to Hitagi's home, and then she walks, and it's like he's waiting for her, and she's showering. Then she just enters the room, just like that, like naked, butt naked, and she dresses in front of him, and it's very sexual at first, right? But at first, it's like, and the whole like the brilliance of that scene, in my opinion, is like like slowly it sort of understand why it's framed that way through both the visuals and the dialogue itself. It's because she sort of, because of her sickness or apparition, she doesn't really have any. I don't know if to call it awareness, but something along those lines. And then as the scene progresses, Araki understands her more and more, and the scene becomes less and less focused on Hitagi as like something sexy. It's more like focused on her as a person, and that's it. So you have like fan service that's used well in that way, but then you have fan service that's fan service for the sake of fan service, but it's done a bit cleverly. Cleverly, is that a word? Yeah, whatever. In
Yes.
my opinion, in Tsubasa Tiger, when there's like Hanekawa and Hitagi talk to each other, and Hitagi literally like, let's take a shower for Aragi's sake, aka the viewer's sake.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, super self-indulgent, but I think most of the time it's done very like in a very clever way.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of that is down to the to just brilliant directing of the anime, which is done by Akiyuki Shimba, which bless him.
It's there are like several directors on the show, and all of them are like top tier.
Yeah, well,
Akiyuki
I mean,
Shimba is, like, the
they're
main-
all essentially disciples of Akiyuki Shimbo. But I think a lot of the brilliance of Monogatari, the way it looks and the way it feels, can really just come down to his directing, and just how well done, how much of a like great package director that he is, where he looks at everything and says, how can I make everything as the best I can.
It's interesting because you just mentioned that, and then I started thinking, there's so many, like almost every aspect of the show is just so well, like thought out and so well executed. It's like we talked about the voice acting, the dialogue, the music, the editing, the directing. It's so it's just such a solid package.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a really good place to end. So, what do you want from the Monogatari series going forward? Do you want more anime, or do you think that Zoku will be enough?
I think if done well, because I have no clue what Zoku is gonna be about, and hopefully it will somehow be available, like not too long after release, because I need it. And if Zoku is like a good conclusion, I'll be a-okay with it being the end, as much as it would be kind of sad. But if down the line it will be like, yeah, we want to adapt the rest of the books that Nishio is wrote, I'll be like, sure, I'm down for that. So it's like, I'm happy either way, as I said before.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. It's like, if we just get this to finish out the final season, I'm happy with it. If we get more, I'm happy with that too. I'm always going to be happy for more Monogatari. Just watching these characters do stuff is just unbelievably entertaining.
Yeah, it's strange. Those characters just like stick in our minds so much because they're so fleshed out, they're so layered, they're so fascinating and fun to watch. It's really it's a joy to see them and like hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and it's definitely a big reason as to why Shaft has become my favorite anime studio of all time.
Also, how Sangatsu no Line was a damn good show.
That too, that helped, and of course, and Madoka Magica, that helped a lot too. All right. Well, thank you all out there for stopping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing this stuff to you. I mean, hell, we'll talk about Monogatari anytime you guys want us to. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. If you want to keep up with what we're doing and have a little more fun, you can join our Discord server, become a member of our Facebook group, follow our Twitch channel, and visit our website. As always, if you have any questions, comments, criticisms, or concerns of this or any episode, feel free to shoot us an email. Links to all of these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, Natai, even though it's morning.
Send me Hanekawa art. I always appreciate it.
Hey, you know the thing about Hanekawa, right? She doesn't know everything, but she just knows,
what she knows
that this episode is over.
Ah!